Future, brought to you by Vote All of Us Together. My name is Owen Crowley, and I am your moderator for this evening, joined by another co-moderator, Talisha Feemster. We are also joined by a fantastic panel tonight, so let's get right on into it with some introductions. First off, Mr. Larry Helsham, the PA Political Director for Joe Biden for President. Larry, how are you doing?
I'm good. It's good to be with you, Owen.
Thank you so much for joining us. And up next, we have Chrissy Houlihan, currently U.S. Representative for the PA 6th District, running for re-election. How are you doing, Chrissy?
I'm well, thanks, Owen. Thanks for having us tonight.
Of course. And up next, we have Mr. Dan Williams. He was elected to the Pennsylvania House of Representatives in 2018, representing the 74th District in Chester County, Pennsylvania, also running for re-election. How are you doing?
I am well. It's a pleasure to be with you tonight. Thank you for having me.
Of course. We also are joined by Richard Ruggieri, running for state representative in the 13th District, Southern Chester County. How are you doing, Richard?
I'm very well. Thanks for having me.
Of course. And she is not in currently, but we will hopefully be joined by Mayor Diane Herron, Mayor of Westchester, running for PA State Rep in the 156th. Our final panelist for this evening is Mr. Bob Roggio, former candidate for U.S. Congress in 2008. He ran in the PA 6th District contest. How are you doing, Bob?
I'm doing fine. I'm glad I'm not a candidate.
All right. And we are also joined by my wonderful co-moderator again, Talisha Feemster. How are you doing, Talisha?
I am well, Owen. Thank you so much. I'm Talisha Feemster. I'm the co-moderator and a small business owner here in Thorndale. I will be fielding your questions to Owen and getting them answered for you.
Remember, we have a Q&A option down at the bottom of this Zoom call. Make sure all throughout this call, if you have any questions at all for any of our panelists or moderators, feel free to throw them in there. Tonight, our program focus will feature our stellar Democratic candidates and highlight why voters should vote for Democrats for every office on the ballot in this election. Let's head on back to our panelists for this evening. First up, we have Mr. Larry Helsham. How are you doing?
I'm good, Owen, and it's so good to be here with you. As Owen said, my name is Larry Helsham. I serve as Pennsylvania Political Director for the Biden-Harris campaign. And Owen, you pose a really good question. I think our panel is very poised to answer all of those questions. We have some really great folks running for office in Pennsylvania, from the top of the ticket, from Joe Biden to Senator Kamala Harris, all the way to Senator Williams, to Richard, and all the way to Congresswoman Houlihan. One of the things I was just going to tell you is that Joe Biden was actually in Pennsylvania today. He was in Gettysburg. And he was proving to all of us Pennsylvanians and to the nation that this election is about so much more than what folks are talking about. We are truly in a battle for the soul of our nation. And one thing that we know over at the Biden campaign is that Joe believes at his core that there is no greater economic engine in the world than hard work, ingenuity, and grit that the American people have. So I just wanted to start off by saying that. I also just wanted to remind everybody that this election is one of the most important elections of our lifetime. And I think we hear this all the time, Owen, and I'm sure all of our panelists are probably going to say some of the same thing. But this election, I'm 27. This election is the most important election of my lifetime. So I think I wanted to just make sure that I mentioned a place that you need to go to make sure that your vote is cast. And if you have any questions about the process of voting, you should go to www.iwillvote.com/PA. That's www.iwillvote.com/PA to make sure that you are fully ready to cast your ballot. There are so many ways to vote in Pennsylvania that are easy, convenient, and flexible. And we need to make sure, and you need to make sure that you know all of those ways, and you should go to that website. So I wanted to just say, on behalf of the Biden-Harris campaign, we need to elect Congresswoman Houlihan. We need to elect Senator Williams, and we need to elect Representative Ruggieri because this election matters and your vote matters. And you just need to make sure your vote is cast and you need to make that plan. So I'm going to pop off, but I just wanted to say thank you so much for having us. And please, please, please go to make your plan to vote. You know that voting is easy, flexible, and we just need to make sure that we win this thing. So thanks so much, Owen.
Thank you so much for joining us, Larry. Have a great evening. All right. Up next, we have U.S. Rep. Chrissy Houlihan. Thank you so much for joining us. Would you mind introducing yourself a little bit for everyone who's joined us tonight?
Sure. Hi, everybody. Hopefully it's not too loud in the background. I think my husband's making dinner. I'm Chrissy Houlihan, and I'm grateful and proud to be our representative for Pennsylvania's 6th Congressional District, which is all of Chester County and the lower part of Berks County. Chester County has not had anything but a Republican in this seat for 163 years and has never had a woman. So I'm incredibly grateful for all of the work that many of you on this phone have done for us. I'm kind of grateful that Larry just left the call, because what I will say is I don't think this is a top-down race. I think this is a bottom-up race. I think this is the inverse of coattails. I don't know what you call it when it's the reverse of coattails, but I think our statewide candidates, I think my candidacy will help push the vice president across the finish line so that we have the ability to be the part of Pennsylvania that flips the state of Pennsylvania, because I think we have the capacity to do that. So I'm very, very grateful to be here tonight. Very grateful for the chance to be a freshman representative and hopeful to be a sophomore as well. And I'll turn it back over to you guys.
Thank you so much for that. And thank you again for joining us, Chrissy. All right, we're going to pass this over now to PA Rep. Dan Williams. Dan, how are you doing?
I am well, Owen, and again, thank you for having me. I appreciate the correction. I'm in the House of Representatives, not the Senate, and happy to serve there. I serve the 74th District here in Chester County, and this is my first term. And admittedly, I want to echo some of the sentiment I've heard Representative Houlihan sort of express. This election is critically important. And while I'm not sure it is the election of a lifetime, what I am clear about is that this election will have lifetime consequences. Whether we're talking about the appointment of the Supreme Court or just some of the rollbacks that we've suffered through in terms of DEP, it's an election that will ultimately have enormous lifetime consequences. And again, it's not merely a matter of the top of the ticket, although that is critically important. I agree that what's happening down ballot, especially since the eradication of straight ticket voting has become what it is, we've got to be more conscientious around filling out the totality of the ballot and getting folks to understand that much of this election is going to affect those closest to the people, which are the down ballot races. And so we need to flip the Pennsylvania House, we need to flip the Pennsylvania Senate, and we need to provide Mr. Biden with a Senate and a House that he can work with to get some things done. This election really is about a restoration of kindness and empathy and decency and dignity, things that are missing in the present administration. And so my hope is that people will be passionate in their pursuit of getting out and voting, as well as getting another dozen people to the polls as well. So I'm happy to be here tonight and privileged to be a part of this conversation.
Thank you so much for that, Dan. Up next, we also have another PA Rep candidate, Mr. Richard Ruggieri. How are you doing, Richard?
Yes, thank you. I'm doing very well. Thanks for having me again. I'm actually in my basement right now, where I've been working and campaigning for the past 7 months, although it feels more like 7 years, which means I think I have approximately 10 years left until the election's over in this last 20-some days. So, like I said, my name is Richard Ruggieri. I'm running for the PA State House in District 13. District 13 is made up of 22 municipalities, 20 of which are in Chester County, and 2 are actually in Lancaster County. The district includes 3 school districts, most of Avon Grove, all of Oxford, and parts of Octorara. It includes Landenberg, West Grove, at Glen, Oxford, and Christiana. Now, I was born in the Landenberg area, but I was raised in north central PA in the mountains north of Williamsport. I grew up on my grandparents' farm. It was called Green Acres, which I didn't get the joke at first, but I did later on. It actually had the word Green Acres in white on the red barn. We had horses and pigs and cows, chickens, billy goats, peacocks at one point. And we had it all. And it was a great place to grow up. And I think I ended up here in the 13th where I'm running, in part because I love open spaces in quiet places. And, you know, southwestern Chester County is where you can really find those places. Now, not a month after I turned 18 and graduated high school, I swore an oath to defend the nation and uphold the Constitution. Now, when you're thinking about joining the military, the recruiters are very nice to you. You go down there, you hang out, they give you snacks, they give you drinks. They're talking about all the awesome things you're going to do. And when you're done and you sign your paperwork, you go and you swear the oath. So I was it a group of guys, went over, raised my hand, swore the oath, went back to the recruiters' offices to finish up, but there were no snacks and there were no drinks. They took us out back to the back door and they opened it up, and the recruiter pointed to the parking lot and he said, "All right, go pick up the cigarette box out there." And that was the first lawful order that I followed to defend the country. The Air Force has a saying, which is you have to be a good follower to be a good leader. And, picking up those cigarette butts was the beginning of me becoming a good leader. I served 10 years in service, 4 in the active duty and 6 in the Air National Guard out of Middletown near Harrisburg. And the military taught me a lot, but I wanted to go to college. So I went to Penn State, got my degree in information science and technology. I loved Penn State so much, I stayed there and worked for a number of years as a systems administrator, systems designer, and project manager. I'm mostly working with adult learners in the outreach department. I'm currently an assistant vice president in IT service management at Barclays Bank down in Wilmington, Delaware. I live here in PA because of my family. I have my wife, Christy. In past June was our 10th anniversary and 17th year together. And our 2 sons, Jack is 9 and in 4th grade, and Desmond, who started kindergarten and will be 6 in November, just before Thanksgiving. Now, I've had 2 major formative experiences as an adult. One was the military, taught me a lot about honor and service and leadership. And the other was becoming a father, which taught me in a profound way about being part of something larger than myself. In this case, about our shared humanity. I was surprised how fatherhood made me feel closer to other people, especially other parents, and really made me start caring for the future and what I'd leave behind in a much more immediate and intimate way. And that brings me to my campaign. So it's based on a very simple principle. Government should work, and it should work for the people it's meant to represent. The General Assembly, under the current leadership, and the PA House and the current representation at 13th have failed to live up to that standard. Like, I've been out of the armed forces now for 13 years, but this year, 2020, I felt, as I'm sure many of you here listening have felt, that I was called to defend the nation once again, and that's why I'm running. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Richard, and thank you again also for your service.
Yes.
All right, so our last panelist for this evening, we have former U.S. congressional candidate Bob Roggio. I understand you wanted to talk about some fundraising and the difficulties that all of these panelists have at hand, especially with just a month left in this election.
Hello, everybody. I am Bob Roggio, and I did run for Congress in 2008. And as Chrissy said, nobody won that office in terms of Democrats until Chrissy did in 2018. And I was there with her, and I just think that's amazing. And I'm really glad that she was able to make it tonight. I asked to be on this panel because I want to talk about fundraising, which is something that I'm sure the candidates all do and are uncomfortable doing. So I figured, since I'm not running, I can do this. And what I wanted to say is that I did have a lot of experience with that. I was on the phone, I'm sure as many of these candidates are, hours and hours every day trying to raise funds. We did a lot of mailings trying to raise funds, and it's actually a little distasteful, but it had to be done. And I want to quote a little bit here today from a letter I got from Chrissy Houlihan asking me for money. And the reason I want to quote from it is because it's actually the sentiment that I was trying to put through tonight. And she wrote here, "Even in normal times, asking for donations is one of my least favorite things about running for office. However, there is just too much at stake." And that's why I'm here tonight. There is too much at stake. I also one that believes this is the election of a lifetime, and it's the most important one that I've ever participated in, and I've been around for a little bit while. So I asked if I could do this tonight. And I would say it's not only tough for the candidates to go out and ask, it's also tough for the supporters to respond. I don't know about you, but most of us have kind of a distaste for money in politics. And it's, a lack of a better word, it's an icky situation. But it's one that we have to participate in. Those are the rules of the game right now. And the truth is that the Democrats, many of them, and I know all the ones on this panel, really will try to change that somewhat if we can get into the offices and get to control that so that money is not such an influential part of politics. But for now, that's the way it is. And just to prove that, I should point out that the Republican Party in Southeast Pennsylvania has now spent over $4 million to defeat the candidates on this panel and all the other Democratic candidates in Southeast Pennsylvania. So it's a really important thing that we talk about fundraising. And I like to talk about it, how I explained it to myself over many years. And that's that I think we should look at it a little differently than just giving away our money. And what I do is I could ask you this question. If I said to you, I guarantee that Joe Biden will be the next president of the United States if you would just do a few simple things. And those things would be like, if you're planning to go to dinner this Saturday night, expensive restaurant and everything, cancel that. Take that money and give it to the candidates of your choice. If you're planning to play golf like I am next week, cancel that. Take that money and give it to the candidates of your choice. And if you're planning, like most of us are these days, to be on Amazon, Amazon.com, get off Amazon. Take that money and give it to the candidates. And if you think about it from that perspective, you'll find that it's not that much of a sacrifice to do what we know is a very, very important thing to do. And I think that I can't guarantee that Joe Biden will be our next president, so I have to take that back. But I'm going to make a pledge to you. I am canceling my golf round, and I'm asking you to cancel whatever it is you were planning that's not that important, and take that time and give the money, because we need that in order to win. We need it to defend ourselves against the Republicans who are spending a lot of money here in Southeast Pennsylvania. And I want to talk about one little thing more about fundraising. I got a call earlier today from someone, and they said to me, I'm thinking about contributing $10 to a specific candidate. And they asked me, should I do that? It's only $10. Is it even worth my time? Should I really do that? And the answer is absolutely. For one thing, there are 500,000, actually more than 500,000 registered Democrats here in Chester County. And if all of them would just send in $10, you guys can do that math. It's not too heavy math there. And we would have plenty of money. Send $10 to a couple candidates, it's even more. So it's very, very important that those of you who can send $10, send $10. If you can send $100, send the $100. If you can send 500 or more, that would be even greater. But money, unfortunately, right now is a part of this campaign, and we need that to defend our democracy, as far as I'm concerned. So I'm hoping you will do that. My last thought, which has nothing to do with money, so that's really easy for me to talk about, and that's the ballot. On the ballot this year, as Chrissy mentioned earlier, there is no straight Democratic ticket. You can't go in there and hit the top column and everybody in the Democratic Party gets voted for. So it's very important, even though we're all very enthusiastic about Joe Biden, we fill out our mail-in ballot or we go to the polls and we vote for Joe Biden, but keep going down and down and down and down until you get to that last Democratic candidate and check that one off. And then I think we're going to be in for, I hope, a very pleasant surprise on November 3rd. And that's it. And I'll back to Owen.
Great job.
Thank you so much, Bob. All right. So I know we have a bunch of questions coming in. Just another reminder before I pass it off to Talisha for a little bit of our Q&A with the panelists. Make sure you send any questions you have for our panelists this evening. You can just click in, I think it's the bottom or side tab of Zoom. Click on Q&A and just ask away. All right, Talisha, what questions do we have this evening for our panelists?
Right. Thank you, Owen. Our first question is, please tell us why this is the election of a lifetime and why each person should register to vote.
All right, Dan, if you wouldn't mind, could we start off with you?
Sure, not a problem at all. I think every person should register to vote, and I want to offer this caveat. In the conversations that I have, there have been people who have suggested to me that they don't like politics, to which I've said you don't have to like politics. You simply have to care about people. And so if you really care about people, care about the issues they confront regarding healthcare, the wage disparity, injustice of whatever ilk, if you really care about the condition of seniors who have to sometimes make decisions about medications or whether or not they'll pay the PICO bill. If you really care about people, this election is something you want to participate in. The stakes, yes, are high, but the impact for those who choose to sit this one out will bring us much more of what we've experienced in the past. Donald Trump won Pennsylvania by something like 44,000 votes, a percentage that is minimal. And so if people don't see this as a critical time to engage the political process, I'm not sure what anyone else can say to sort of awaken them to the reality of this moment. And so my hope is that men and women, and particularly members of the other generation, will see voting in this election as a priority above all other priorities.
Thank you for that, Dan. And Chrissy, would you mind telling us why you believe this is the election of a lifetime and why each person really should register and get out to vote?
Dan was incredibly eloquent in his description of why it matters, why our voices matter. And I was raised in a family with one Democrat, one Republican, my dad and my mom, who went to the polls together and mailed in their votes together because my dad was military and canceled each other's votes out every single election. And I was raised to, know that it was my responsibility to put my voice in and to, and to use the privilege that I had that so many people had fought for, to have a voice, because there's nobody other than the individual that can better articulate what it is that's important to them. So I think it's a responsibility that we have to not, as Dan mentioned, kind of have the opportunity to sit back and complain, but rather to lean forward and participate. And so I do frankly believe that this is the election of our life. I know that a lot of people say that every year. I haven't been politically engaged in the way that I ought to have been until quite recently. But I think the stakes are just so tragically high. I think we've seen the fabric of our democracy undermined by the very person who should be most protective of it. So I hope everybody understands the gravity with which we approach 28 days from now. And I hope that they grab everybody in their circle and find a way to safely rush to the polls.
Mhm.
And much like said earlier, don't just grab one person, don't just grab 3, grab 12 people,
Oh.
grab 20 even, get everybody out. Richard, would you mind commenting on this as well?
Sure, I'm going to give a very specific example, and it's actually tied to Chrissy, because this is a census year, and the General Assembly in Pennsylvania is going to determine the redistricting, which is going to determine what Chrissy's seat looks like in the future. So it's very important to be registered to vote, and to vote this year, not only because of the president, but so that we can take back control of our redistricting and of our democracy, frankly, here in Pennsylvania along those lines. I mean, the Supreme Court drew the current lines, but I doubt that they are going to want to remain the arbiters of what the districts look like in Pennsylvania. It's not really their job. And, the Republicans overstepped how they gerrymandered in 2010 because nobody was looking, the Red Map program. But I think there are more subtle and smarter ways for them to do it. And I'm sure they've been, thinking of how to do that. So, we need to flip the House. We need to flip the Senate in Pennsylvania so that we can control districting for the next 10 years.
Thank you so much for that. Talisha, do we have any other questions?
Yes, the next question is for Congresswoman Houlihan. What is your favorite part about being a public servant or running for public office?
I think what I've been remarkably surprised by is that prior to running for office, I was and still am very much of an introvert, and really would prefer to be avoiding phone calls, not necessarily out and about, it's hard for me to do those kinds of things. But back to why this is so important, we have to do things that are super uncomfortable for us right now, because it couldn't be more important. And so I think that what's most surprising is all of the amazing people that I unexpectedly met, you know, in my early 50s that I had no intention of doing until this time, this critical time, and how amazing those people are, you know, from our community and from Washington, my colleagues of all kinds, my community of all kinds. It's just an unexpected joy that I didn't expect. And I will, while we're here, answer, I saw a question in the chat that asks about a COVID relief package, and I'll give you my best version of an answer to that. I don't know. I'm really disappointed because at this point in time, Democrats in the House have been negotiating with themselves, you know, for the last 4 or 5 months. We passed a package almost 5 months ago, the HEROES Act. We passed a package last week that was a version of the HEROES Act. I'm part of a group that's called the Problem Solvers Caucus. We put together an even different package that was a proposed, you know, compromise on all things. People really need this to happen. And our government, as of today, as of the tweet of our president, is at a standstill, with him saying that he will not allow his negotiators to participate any further until after the election. And this is exactly what is wrong with, you know, how people perceive their government to be working, is the audacity of saying that with 28 days to go in a pandemic, there's no opportunity for further conversation, is an outrage. I'm hoping that it's a secret negotiating strategy. I'm new at this, and I'm learning very rapidly that there's a lot of silly negotiations that both sides, you know, play in. But I am despondent that we haven't been able to rise to the occasion and move another package forward. So I will continue to do what I'm doing, which is harassing every person that I'm able to, all the leadership that I'm able to let them know my priorities. I had a conversation with the Speaker Pelosi last night about this very issue. And at that point in time, she seemed optimistic. And obviously, you know, a day goes by and we're in a very different place.
Well, thank you for all that you're doing. We really do appreciate it all. We really do. So thank you for that. Okay, next question is for Representative Williams. Although Democrats are in the minority in the PA House, have you been able to make any meaningful accomplishment?
Well, glad you asked, because the truth is we have been. I've been fortunate in my first term as a representative to be able to get a piece of legislation passed. This was a police reform bill, 1910. And I should remind you that this is unique, I think, first of all, because I'm a first term representative, I'm a freshman, but secondly, because there's a lot of work that goes into the kinds of moving these bills forward. And so my appreciation for other members of the Democratic House, their leadership, as well as my colleagues on the other side of the aisle. But 1910, along with Representative Reshaw's bill, 1841, Chris Rabb, Mr. Dawkins, this was a concerted effort to move an agenda forward, pieces of legislation that have the impact of reform that I think goes a long way to addressing and responding to at least some of the cries we hear coming from the people who are asking for change and transformation.
Well, I'm sure that can't be easy. So thank you. Thank you so much. I can't even imagine. Okay, next question. What does each candidate think are the most important issues facing us today? And what is your plan to address the issue?
Who would you like to go first?
I was just about to ask Chrissy if you wouldn't mind leading us off.
Sure. I'm gonna say it's healthcare. It's healthcare. It's healthcare, and then it's jobs with dignity, educational opportunities. It's community safety and planet safety, and then overarching all of that, you know, relative to this conversation, is civility and decency. We want people, our leadership and our representatives, to just knock it off, you know, and be good humans. And that, I think, is a major issue, a campaigning issue at this point in time as well.
Yes.
And Richard, would you mind commenting as well?
Sure. So, I mean, my focus is on schools here in Pennsylvania, both K through 12 and higher ed. We need to have better funding formula for our students and our kids. Also, as evidenced by my own story, college isn't always the first step in a successful life. So, as a community, we have to support alternative paths to success, such as military service, vocational training, that sort of thing. Also, I think at the state level, we're going to be dealing a lot with the budget as it pertains to how COVID impacted the economy. And that's where Chrissy and the federal government can hopefully at some point, President Biden get us the relief we need to ensure that we're not faced with the choice of striking services that people really depend on in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, thank you for that. And Dan, would you mind rounding us out here?
I guess that's the advantage of going last. Risk redundancy. But I would submit this. I don't know that there is a single issue. I think when you listen to what my colleagues have just described, the issues are conflated. Some of it is economic, some of it is education, some of it is environment. And all of those things are they assimilate, they connect, because each one of those issues impacts the other. And so I think the most critical, certainly characteristic, not in regards to issues, but in terms of candidates, is courage. The character of courage and being able to go into these spaces and continue to advocate for all of these things, whether it's education, economic disparity, environmental issues, to be a real voice and advocate for those things in a way that's comprehensive.
Hey, Owen, could I say something on the back end of that? So what Chrissy said about civility, in my mind, I connected it to voting, because if people really want a civil government, at this point, I believe that is voting for Democrats. The Republican Party needs to lose, and they need to lose a couple times so they'll moderate their views. We need a strong Republican Party, just like we need a strong Democratic Party. That competition of ideas is good for democracy. But we don't have that right now. What we have is a Republican Party that is being cornered in a way that they're starting to say, well, maybe we don't want democracy because we can't win elections fairly. And that's the scary part, I think, for me, of where we are right now. So getting out and voting for Democrats, we can bring back civility, and the Republicans will moderate if they lose enough.
And I would add that goes all the way back to where you started, which is gerrymandered districts. Because when we have districts that are deliberately designed to polarize and to kind of draw, particularly in Pennsylvania where we have closed primaries, to draw out the far left and to draw out the far right, and those are the folks who advance in these very gerrymandered districts of all kinds, then we end up with almost all the time the most extreme of both of our parties, and that is destructive in terms of our ability to deal with one another, and most of us are not on those polar ends. We're mostly right around here on both sides of the aisle.
Very good point. Very good point. The next question is for Richard, actually. Currently, there's a move on the PA House of Representatives to pass a resolution to create a committee on election integrity. I'm concerned that this is an attempt to interfere with the vote count in PA. Would you comment on this situation?
Sure. So this kind of harkens back to what I was just saying. Frankly, I'm concerned as well.
Yeah.
It was only last year that Act 77, which created the mail-in vote, mail-by vote option, among other elections changes, was passed with bipartisan support. And what the Republican House should be doing is working with the Wolf administration to fix the issues that we saw during the primary. Issues that voter services departments across Pennsylvania have been asking for. Instead, they're trying to create this select commission on election integrity. So State Representative Everett is spearheading that, and he insists that the goal is just a post-election report, but the actual wording of the resolution sort of says the committee could propose changes before or after the 2020 election, which means that any investigations, they can start any investigations at any time and use their subpoena power between now and election day, on election day, if they chose to. The two main reasons I find it concerning is, first, there's already an advisory committee that exists, which is supposed to do this exact thing, made up of 4 Republicans and 4 Democrats. And the second is the reporting out of the Atlantic that Pennsylvania Republicans, in coordination with the Trump administration, are looking at if and how they could override the outcome of the election and instead have the Republican-controlled legislature appoint Trump's slate of electors, thereby basically throwing Pennsylvania to the Republicans and Trump. So those two issues make it very questionable in my mind why we would need this select committee. And I think what people can do is contact your representative and inundate their office with phone calls, tell them you don't support it.
And thank you, Richard. Just one more quick thing about that. What is the current status of this resolution, and what exactly can individual voters in Pennsylvania do? How else can we help?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, just getting in touch with your local representative and express your not support for the committee. I would say right now, as I understand it, the bill has passed through committee and it's with the full House. I don't believe it has received a vote yet. I know that there was a GOP representative that came down with COVID and they had to adjourn. So I don't know where it is yet. Representative Williams may actually know more than I do.
Well, actually, you're absolutely correct. It passed through committee on a party line vote. Presently, we have not voted on it. My sense is that we'll go back into session and 1032 will be a part of the session agenda. Keep in mind that this legislature has been more active, the most active legislature in the country. And these are the kinds of bills that continue to be brought up in the midst of a pandemic, in the midst of people experiencing enormous suffering. And absolutely, this bill is not a noble intent to sort of help the election process. It's a chaotic interference that ultimately, if it passes, will allow for the subpoena of commissioners and county representatives. And this is just not a bill that we need. Its intent is not to help. Its intent is to throw chaos and confusion into the process, drag out the results of an election, and that is its intent.
Thank you. Also, I just realized we have just been joined by Mayor Diane Herron. How are you doing this evening?
I'm doing well, thank you. Sorry, I am so late. I was double booked.
No worries at all. If you actually wouldn't mind, could you tell us a little bit about who you are and how you're running your campaign?
And Owen, really quick, hi Diane. I do have to have a hard stop at 8:15, so I have to pop off, but I wanted to just say hi to Diane.
Hi, Chrissy. Good to see you. Yeah, so I'm Diane Herron. I'm currently the mayor of Westchester, and I've been mayor for approximately 3 years. And it's kind of a unique circumstance. The reason I'm here running for the 156th district of the Pennsylvania House is our current representative, Carolyn Comita, decided that she wanted to run for Senator Andy Dinniman's seat in the 19th senatorial district. He retired very late in the game. So really if she wanted to run for that seat, she just had one choice, and that was to get her name on the ballot for the Senate seat and to retain her name on the ballot for the 156th House, and which she did, and she won both handily. So after the primary, she resigned the House seat, and I threw my hat into the ring and was appointed by the Democratic committee people of the 156th district. So I got started a little late in the game, but we ramped up extremely quickly. We're doing very, very well. And I'm really excited to be the person who will hold this seat. Even though it's an open seat, I believe I will hold it. And hopefully we can flip some of those flippable seats and turn the House and Senate blue. That's the goal.
That is the goal.
Yes.
And thank you again so much for joining us. We're really happy you can make it tonight. We were just in the midst of going through some Q&A questions. I think Talisha has a few more for you as well as the rest of our panelists.
Yep, I have, it's about 1:15, so I think I have one last question. What is the most important message that you would like to leave with our viewers this evening? What is one important message that you can't go without saying?
Dan, would you mind starting us off with this?
I want you to vote like your life depends on it.
That's it.
Because
Say no more.
when everything is settled down and the dust is cleared, the critical issue in this election is that you not sit this one out, that you crawl, you walk, you run, however you have to get there. Vote by mail, vote by, whatever you have to do, you have to vote. And so I think that's the message I'd like people to walk away with. This election is one of those moments in time when 10 years from now, you're asked, what were you doing in the midst of the pandemic in 2020? You need to be able to say, I was exercising my civil right. I was voting. And I hope people will become passionate about that.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed. And thank you so much again for joining us, Dan. Richard, would you mind commenting as well?
Oh, your mic. Yep, there you go.
Sorry about that.
Okay.
I'll piggyback off of what Dan said. I'll just say that in Pennsylvania, there's an election every 6 months. It's not just the presidential election either. It's not just right now. There will be another primary in May. There will be another general election in 2021, right? So voting every year in Pennsylvania is important because voting commissioners at the county level, voting for your magisterial judges, all those positions are very important to how government works and how you're impacted. I was asked recently by the Chester County Young Dems what I would say to young voters where we are as a country. And I said that I believe we're at the darkest hour before the dawn. And what makes me optimistic, what makes me hopeful is everyone here tonight, the Democrats across Chester County, across Pennsylvania, and across the country who've been working tirelessly. You know, we find ourselves called to push back against the darkness and the chaos, frankly, which threatens to overtake the soul of our nation. You know, I have no doubt that we will flip the Pennsylvania legislature, that we're going to send Chrissy back to Washington, that we're going to retake the Senate, and we're going to ensure that the Biden-Harris ticket not only wins, but wins so big, it leaves the no doubt to the winner. They're going to call the election early, and I can go to bed. So continue to push forward. The dawn is only a few weeks away.
And get 20 people out with you. You gotta get them all out. Gotta get them all out to vote together.
That's right. Right.
All right. And Diane, would you mind commenting on that as well?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm sure we all have the same message. We just may say it a little differently.
Mm-hmm.
I think right now there is so much chaos. There's a whole lot of anger. And I think it could be really easy for a lot of us to feel that we just can't, get up and make this happen, but we can and we absolutely must, because we are at the most critical juncture that our country has been at in certainly my lifetime. We are losing our institutions, and we have to believe, I think for me and for all of us, we have to find that place where we can have the faith that we can turn this country to a place where we truly can unite and we truly can have a vision that is a moral vision, We have to put forth a vision that will enable us to pass policies that provide equity and fairness and equal access to education and healthcare. All of these things are great for our economy, they're great for our country, and they're great for the people who live here. And we have to believe it, we have to feel it, we have to live it, we have to vote,
Yes.
because we can do this. It's up to us. If we don't do it, nobody will. But I believe that we will. We are going to go blue, and we're going to get out that vote, and let's do this, everybody.
Love that. Let's do this. Thank you so much again, all of you, for joining us this evening. I just want to give a quick little advertisement, and make sure you actually write this down. For one, the PA Voter Assistance Hotline is 1-833-728-6837. And earlier tonight, we had Larry Hailsham on, who told you to check to make sure you are ready to cast your ballot. And you can check that out at www.iwillvote.com/PA. We also, this entire evening was brought to you by voteallofustogether.com. We welcome your donations at our site. All proceeds go to turning Chester County blue. Connect with us, get a free sign, bumper sticker, get some signs. And I think we have a couple, all of us Joe Biden hats left. So be sure to check all of that out. All right. And next week, we will be joined again by another wonderful panel. The topic next week is Your Future is in Your Hands, and we will be joined by a bunch of wonderful young Democrats. That is again next Tuesday, October 13th at 7:30. Thank you all again for joining us this evening, and have a great night.
Everyone.